Hello, 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 hello. Okay. All right. I think I'm good to go. Anyways, it's Edwin, and you're watching Strictly Comics. Today, I'm going to do my first comic book review on May the, what is it, the 22nd, I think? Yeah, anyways. My first comic book review for this week, and I went to my comic book shop today and I got my pull list. I'm not going to talk about everything that I got today on my pull list because I just don't think we have the time for that, nor do I think that you guys want to sit here and listen to everything. But we will cover about half of the books that I picked up today. And what I try to do is I try to get some books to talk about from several publishers. Several, when I say several, I mean like maybe 3 or 4. Your main Marvel, DC, Image, maybe Dynamite. I'm not really sure, but anyways, I'm going to talk about the big 3, I guess. Anyways, quick shout out to Miss Witty Remarks. On my introduction video, I didn't really mention her. I mentioned, Poet Skinny and Living Dead and a few others, but I always want to help the little person try to come up a little bit, and I am a subscriber to her because, I do. She actually reminds me of a friend of my wife and I, and she's a sweetheart, Adrian. But to Miss Witty Remarks, you're a sweetheart too. My wife and I, we watch you and we enjoy you. I don't really watch all of her videos because I can't really relate to everything she's talking about, but her comic book videos, I do watch her comic book videos. So, anyways, let's get right into it. The first book that we're going to review today is Batman, The Dark Knight, issue 20. Now, this was actually a pretty good book. The writer is Greg Hurwitz. Sorry, Greg Hurwitz, and the artist is Simon Kadransky. Not really sure where he's from, but I want to assume that he's probably not from the U.S. The artwork is pretty good. Not like the greatest in my opinion, but it's actually pretty good because there are some comic books out there that got some really crappy art. But I heard from Todd McFarlane that it's not really about how good you can draw; it's about how well you can tell a story through your artwork. So, but the artwork is pretty good. The writing is actually pretty good. In the comic book, Bruce Wayne is actually kind of battling internally a little bit with him being Batman and then him being Bruce Wayne. And then Alfred actually kind of talks about how you can't really live in light and darkness at the same time because one is going to dominate the other. And this is true for a lot of us in our lives today who want to, we say we want to be one thing, but we're living out another thing. You have to live one way or the other. You can't have both. And that's what Alfred kind of talks about a little bit in this issue because Bruce is actually battling and internalizing within himself over the loss of his son Damien. And he kind of talks about that a little bit because he is going to tell Natalia that he's not going to be doing this forever. He's not going to be doing this whole Batman thing forever. And Bruce starts to reflect, I guess, on his life, and he says that he's going to take a look into the future and see what he wants to do. This is something that he wants to continue to do. So you start to see kind of a process a little bit, kind of maybe the beginning stages of maybe some radical changes in the Batman universe. I'm not really sure. Maybe they'll bring back Azrael to be Batman. I don't know. That was kind of a cool change back in the 90s. But it was just kind of interesting to see him reference to his future, and then see Alfred kind of reference to Batman. And then, as you can tell from the cover, that in this issue, Batman, well, not Batman, but the Mad Hatter is involved. Batman and Mad Hatter don't really have any, they're not really communicating or contact with each other within the comic, but the Mad Hatter is holding hostage a friend of Batman. I'm not really sure who she is. I can't really remember. I haven't really been. I'm so far behind, you guys. You just don't even know how far behind I am on my comic book reading. So with this week, I just kind of jumped into whatever came out so that I could talk about it. The Mad Hatter has a woman hostage, and he is trying to get information out of her, trying to find out who Batman is, because the Mad Hatter believes that she knows who Batman is, and before he kills her, he wants to know. And I do want to say that with the Batman titles, they're pretty dark. The writing is pretty dark, the story is pretty dark, and I assume that it's because the Batman movies were pretty dark, but then I also realized that, well, I'm pretty sure it's because of the signs of the times and where this time is and where this age is. The age is getting really darker, you know, stories, movies, everything is just getting darker. And that's just a result of the signs of the times and where we are at. We're just getting darker and darker until Jesus comes, and which he will. But and then also there was a ad for the upcoming story Zero Year, which is an origin of the Dark Knight, which I'm pretty interested in, which is going to be written by Scott Snyder and drawn by Greg Capullo. So I'm actually pretty interested in that and pretty excited to see what that's going to bring. The conclusion, I'm not going to leave any spoilers or anything, but the conclusion is upsetting and sad, to say the least. It was a good read, and I'm going to continue reading it because after the conclusion, you see the title for the next issue, which is Rage of the Batman. So he's probably extremely pissed because of the events that have taken place recently in his life. So read this one. It's a good read. And not only that, but it's a good read for a title that's only $3. It's hard to find a good comic, a good title that's under $4. So this one, in my opinion, is worth $3. There's not too many Batman issues that are out there that are $3. So pick this one up. It's pretty good read. The next one is going to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Baxter. This was a really interesting story, and I recommend that you guys pick this one up. I did not read the first issue. I thought that this was the first issue, kind of like how TMNT has been putting out like an issue of Donatello, Michelangelo, whatever. I thought this was just kind of a one-shot, but it's not. At the end, it actually ends. The story actually ends. There's an ending to it at the end of this issue, but I think that they'll probably continue at least to maybe like 3 or 4 issues. I'm not sure, but jumping into this at issue number 2 kind of makes me want to get issue number 1. But this was actually a really good read. You actually see into Baxter Stockman's life a little bit, his past, and what happens is there are these flashbacks of Baxter Stockman as probably like the age of 10, and then like the age of probably 14 or 15, and then I think there's one other, and then the very last panel, there's an encounter of Baxter with his father, and the correlation of the flashbacks in the story is that in the flashbacks, Baxter's playing chess with his dad, and as we all know, that you have to be pretty smart to be very good at chess. You have to be a forward thinker and think many steps ahead, and you have to try to predict what the moves that your opponent is going to be making. And that correlates with the story because Baxter is trying to think ahead of Krang, because Baxter right now is working for Krang, basically working because in Krang's eyes, Baxter's expendable. and as long as Baxter's making himself useful, he continues to live. But Baxter is working on the Technodrome, trying to either build one or rebuild the Technodrome, I'm not sure, and at the same time do his little side projects to take over the Technodrome, because that's ultimately what he wants to do. Because Krang wants to make the Earth and the elements basically to the point to where it's uninhabitable. It can't be inhabited. It can't. People can't exist or live within the environment and what he intends to do to the Earth. He basically wants to make it inhabitable. So, and Baxter's like, well, if you're going to take over the Earth, that obviously means that I'm not going to be able to live in it. At best, I'll be your pet. And Baxter obviously doesn't want to be that. He wants to take over the Earth as well, but not to the point to where people can't live in it. So the story is actually really good. It's well written, in my opinion. The conclusion, the ending, is pretty evil. You really see how selfish and evil and wicked Baxter is. He does something to his father. I won't say what it is, but what he does to his own blood biological father, you see just how evil of a mind Baxter possesses. So a good read, though. Also, I want to point out that IDW, the quality of their paper is really, really good. It's definitely superior to that of Marvel and some DC titles, which is probably why they're charging $3.99 per book, no matter what the story is, no matter what the issue is. But good read, pick it up. Next is Talon. What is this? Number 8. The Talon storyline is actually a really good storyline. And although I haven't read all of them, I have read some of them. This one I just kind of jumped into. The artist is Miguel Sepulveda, and the writer is James Tynion IV. It's actually pretty well written. The storyline is pretty good. It kind of sees into Calvin Rosas' life a little bit, and how he started out with Sebastian Clark. And Sebastian Clark was a part of the Court of Owls, and now he wants to just take them down. He pretty much lives for just trying to take down the Court of Owls and everything that they stand for. And the Court of Owls, as we know, is just basically the Illuminati. The Illuminati, Freemasons, but they're just called the Court of Owls in the comic book world. So, but this is a continuation of another story, because Talon he's actually dead, or he got his butt kicked, or he got killed by Bane in a previous issue, and this is just kind of the continuation of that. Bane is actually working in collaboration with Sebastian, because I don't really know everything, but it just seems like Sebastian needs Bane, because Bane wants to not only destroy the Court of Owls, but he wants to destroy Batman as well. But Sebastian sees Bane's intent, and figures that he can use that to help him take down the Court of Owls. So Sebastian and Bane are now in cahoots with each other, and Bane is actually forming an army to take down the Court of Owls. The conclusion of this, what happens is that the Talon, who is Calvin Rose, Calvin has to do something for the Court of Owls, because the Court of Owls has some friends and family of his hostage. And if Calvin doesn't cooperate with the Court of Owls, then those hostages will be killed. So Calvin is reluctant to do the favor that they want him to do, and I won't say what that favor is. You have to read it. I don't want to spoil it. So yeah, he's reluctant to do it, and so now he basically is like, if I got to go to hell for my friends and family, that I'll do so. And that's just the kind of attitude that he has now. And the ending is the beginning of the favor that Calvin has to do for the Court of Owls. Pretty good read. Again, it's another DC title that's under $4. It's $2.99. So pick this one up. The Talon is usually never fails as a pretty solid read. Next is the Scarlet Spider. What is this? Scarlet Spider number 17. This was a pretty good read. As you can see from the cover, Scarlet Spider is fighting with Wolverine, and that's pretty much what takes place within this book. The artist is Carlo Barberi. The writer is Chris Yost. I will say that Scarlet Spider, along with Avenging Spider-Man and, of course, Superior Spider-Man, they're all really fun reads. Like the writing and the artwork go well with each other. They have a pretty good chemistry, in my opinion, as far as the artwork and the writing. It's a really fun read. In this story, Scarlet Spider has a debt that he has to pay to the Assassin's Guild. And the Assassin's Guild are basically contacting Scarlet Spider because now it's time to pay up. And that paying up of that debt consists of a favor to the Assassin's Guild, which includes killing somebody. Whoever it is that they want him to kill. He kills one time, one person, and the Assassin's Guild will leave him and his friends and his family alone forever, and they won't bother him anymore. Well, we all know how that goes. They say they won't bother you no more, but there's always things that there's always one more thing that needs to be done, another threat or whatever. But anyways, and it's kind of funny because they hand Scarlet Spider the file of who he needs to kill, and he kind of flips it open and he looks at the picture, and it's Wolverine. And I just love his remark because he's like, "Ooh boy, you basically want me to kill the one person that can't be killed, and you want me to kill the one person that many people have tried to kill and have never been successful at." So, a challenging task to say the least, but he goes through with it. He doesn't argue, he doesn't try to get out of it. He actually follows through with the mission, with their requests, and ends up sneaking into the Xavier Mansion, Jean Grey School of Higher Learning, and fights the X-Men. And it's a pretty good, fun read, fun battle, like I said. And then up comes Wolverine, and then he fights Wolverine. And like I said, I won't spoil it, but the ending is pretty interesting. And I'll definitely continue reading this to see what happens. But in the end, somebody dies. I'm sorry, somebody dies. But does anybody ever really die? No. Because somebody dies in the comic book universe, they're never really dead, or they always come back. So, but somebody dies at the end of this book. I won't tell you who it is. Pretty good read, pretty fun read. I actually love the writing for Scarlet Spider because you're starting to see, just like at the title, he says, all the power but none of the responsibility. And this, in a way, is kind of how I feel Spider-Man should be, but with Peter Parker and his consciousness and the person that who he is, you can't really, you can't really be this awesome or this bad as he should be. So pretty good read, definitely pick it up. And last, I want to review The Bounce. Now, I saw the cover and I was like, oh man, this is just another Spider-Man ripoff. Look how he's hanging upside down and stuff like that. But the read was actually pretty good. David Messina is the artist and Joe Casey was the writer. This was actually better than I thought it was going to be. In the opening panel, you see the main character, his name is Jasper Jenkins, and he's also the Bounce. Although in the book you don't actually see him become the Bounce, but you know that if you read it, you know that it's him. And in the opening panel, as soon as you open up, you just see the main character getting baked. He's just like got this huge bong, and he's smoking his weed, and he's just getting fried. And I was like, well, this is something that almost every comic book reader can relate to. So, yeah, I mean, it was funny, you know. But there's actually a lot of characters, first appearances, that are introduced in this comic. The first is Jasper Jenkins, who is the Bounce. The second is a villain called the Crunch. And if you see the Crunch, you'll know why he's called the Crunch. He's basically just this big, kind of reminds me a little bit of, just maybe a little bit of, what's his name? Strong Guy? Yeah, that's him. A little bit of Strong Guy mixed in with a little bit of Doomsday from Superman, DC. He's just this killer, assassin, hitman. Probably better word for him is hitman. And you see why he's called the Crunch. The Bounce fights the Crunch. Pretty interesting. Another character is the Darling, which is a villain who is, I don't know if he gets funding from the government or some secret society or agent, but what he is into extra dimensions, extra dimensional knowledge. And when you see, he takes these generals, these people that he is employed by, I'm not sure, or he's trying to sell something to. He takes them into this room, and then there's this warp dimensional gate. And the first thing I thought of was, oh, this is a Stargate ripoff, but without the Egyptian hieroglyphics around. But, you know, that's kind of where this is going. And then another character is called the Fog. Well, after the Bounce's encounter with the Crunch, he's going to try to find, he wants to get more weed. He's always wanting this very THC potent weed to get as high as he can. And they take him into this back room, and then there's this character called the Fog. Well, the Fog actually is the drug, and what happens is that you have to breathe in this character called the Fog to get these side effects, the high or whatever. And the high is more of a mixture of marijuana, acid, and ecstasy, you know, all in one. And that's where the comic kind of concludes at, is this high, trippy experience that Jasper Jenkins is experiencing from inhaling this character called the Fog, and then it just kind of ends there. You know, a couple of things I didn't really like was the superpower of this character he's called the Bounce, but he literally just like bounces. He kind of rolls and bounces off walls and bounces off people, and when he lands, you see this boing, and he just lands and just jumps up, and so it's just kind of like, you know, that's just where that's just his superpower, I guess, is he is a bouncy person. Wasn't really impressed with that. I thought it was kind of lame, but like I said, the writing is actually pretty good. The story is actually pretty good, so I'll probably continue to pick this up. And being as how it's an Image #1, I recommend that everybody pick it up, because usually when you can pick up a #1, grab it, because Image is not big into printing a lot of copies. The Walking Dead #1, I think there was like less than 8,000 copies printed, which is one reason why it's so expensive. And like the Nowhere Men, I think there was like less than 12,000 copies of those printed. So anytime you can get an Image #1, grab it. You probably won't be disappointed. So far, this book is pretty good, and I'll probably continue to watch it. Anyways, I'm eating up this time. I want to thank you guys very much for watching. Keep God first. Enjoy your comics, and God bless you guys. I'm out of here.